I've talked about the movie I did third week. Um, Feature film that we shot in New York City, Staten Island, Manhattan. Um, I announced that it was on Amazon Prime. Now, that's wonderful. But now I can officially announce that third week is on Tubi. I actually got to watch it last week for the first time, the full movie, hour and a half. Go check it out. Third week is officially on Tubi now as well. So if you want a free option, go to Tubi. If you feel a little generous to your boy and you want to spread the good wealth, you could go on Amazon Prime. But does it feel good to be alive listening to the most charismatic podcast or what? Welcome to the most overrated, underappreciated, most viewed, underviewed podcast of all time. Welcome to the Prince of Fresh Air. I'm, of course, your host, the beloved, the most charismatic man, the Prince of Fresh Air, Percy. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for always coming back. Thank you for supporting me. Ooh, I feel good. I feel alive. I feel energized. I haven't felt this way in a while. It's been a while. Fresh off doing a bunch of auditions. I was on set this week. Can't spill too much beans about it, but it was a good time. I met a lot of great people behind the camera and other actors, and I'm feeling the good spirits. I'm feeling the energy, and I just I'm just grateful. I'm grateful to be alive. I'm grateful for all you for tuning in and listening to the podcast, even in my breaks, even in my hiatuses. Because like I said in my last podcast, I had to go back to the basics. I had to go back to what got me to the dance. And I just want to say, I think some people misconstrue my confidence for cockiness. Now I can be cocky, but I'm just confident, and I didn't have this confidence for a long time in my life. It's something that I found along the way, and I grew into, and I'm proud of it. And I think it speaks for itself with the podcast and my acting. I think I love having that confidence in my work, and it not only makes me a better entertainer, but it makes this podcast and it makes what I do even more entertaining. So I just want to say thank you for tuning in, for checking out the most charismatic man himself. So, what are we doing today? Where is the guest? That's right. You have a guest. The guest is the most charismatic man himself. It's me. Because I'm going back to my roots. What got me to the dance? I'm going to be doing something a little different. Um, when I first started this podcast, I used to do a lot of breaking news, trending news, pop culture type segments, and I haven't done them in a while, mostly because I transitioned the podcast into more of a show element. But I want to go back to how we got here, how we got to the dance. So, in order to do that, I'm going to be talking about a lot of stuff that's going on in my world, the acting world. Some other things I might bring up, but some of the hot takes that's been going around, making the headlines, making the wavelengths, breaking industries. Um, so, what do you want to talk about? I know what you want to talk about. First things first, before we get into the hot topics, I want to say thank you and shout out to Brock Lesnar. For all the WWE fans, even UFC fans, know Brock Lesnar. The one and the only, the beast incarnate himself, recently hung up the gloves, hanged up the boots at SummerSlam 2026 when Obafemi defeated him in Hell in a Cell in his hometown of Minneapolis, Minnesota. Brock Lesnar called it a career. Now, a lot of people felt like WrestleMania, when he put down the gloves, the boots, and said his goodbyes, that was the perfect send off. Why even bring him back? And I think this is where Brock gets some shine. I'm going to give him a grade of an A, because Brock has, for a while, a lot of people thought Brock was selfish. He was all about himself, not really caring about the industry, and he proved that he does care. He made Obafemi look like the monster himself. He made him look like the new up and comer, the young face, the young prospect, the new face of the company. And Brock Lesnar doesn't get enough credit for his selling ability. He doesn't get enough credit for his mic skills, his promo skills, especially in the UFC. But his career, I don't need to go over the accolades. We all know who Brock Lesnar is. The dude was truly one of a kind, and I was little sad to see him go. He's a relic of a generation that no longer is exists. And now Randy Orton is only the last one standing from the OVW class. That him, Brock, John Cena, Batista, and a couple other names, Shelton Benjamin, who's still going strong. Um, but we're entering a new period of the WWE, and we're seeing all the faces and names that made us love are starting to finally call it quits and move on to a new chapter in their lives. So I just want to say thank you to Brock for all his contributions and making me a fan and making me believe wrestling was real because his style was just unmatched, and he proved that in the UFC when he became heavyweight champion. Now, I'm putting on the investigative cap. We're going to be talking about some things that's been going on in the news. First thing I want to address is the biggest thing that's hitting the industry right now in acting. Um, so recently, Marvel was doing a Q&A, and I'm sure some of y'all saw it with Deadpool. Ryan Reynolds came as Deadpool, begging for a role in Doomsday. Hilarious bit, but that's not what a lot of people are talking about. Yeah, it made some news, but what people are talking about is the new casting of David Jonsson, um, known from Alien, Romulus, and a couple other major films that he's done recently. Newer name in the industry, from Britain, from England, and he was cast and announced as the new Black Panther, which will be coming out in 2028. Now, I did a couple, interviews and appearing on other people's podcasts and channels to talk about it, but I wanted to talk about it on my own channel, my own platform, I should say, um, because I feel like people are all up in arms about it, making fun of his looks, making fun of the way how he looks, that he don't look like Chadwick, and all a bunch of stuff. And I think part of the reason was, and for a long time, everybody thought Damson Idris was going to be replacing the Black Panther mantle. Nobody's ever going to replace Chadwick Boseman. Rest in peace to him. Stand up guy. Wish I would have got to work with him on set. Um, but everybody thought Damson was going to be announced. And Marvel did a FU, no pun intended, John Cena, no pun intended. You see what? But they cast David Jonsson. Now, like I said, he's not a household name yet. Not really, in the terms of star power, not there yet. But he has made waves. I have watched some of his films. Phenomenal actor, phenomenal actor. And Marvel and Ryan Coogler especially. Shout out to Ryan Coogler. Would love to work with that guy. Amazing director, amazing visionary. Um, they know they have a tall task ahead of them, and they know that recasting Chadwick is going to be hard no matter what. It's been 8 years since Chadwick Boseman's unfortunate passing away, and he left his industry. He left his mark in the industry. He left his mark as Black Panther, and he left his mark in Marvel. And how do you get somebody to take over that mantle? How do you do that without overshadowing him? Because his overshadowing is too great. And I've said this to people, and I don't know if people understand my perspective, but I'm going to say it. I'm going to share. Ryan Coogler casted David Jonsson not to replace Chadwick, and I think people are getting that misconstrued. I know everybody wanted Dems, and he has the more conventional Hollywood looks, if you want to call it that. But they casted David Jonsson because they're going in a direction. Now, as someone with a lot of experience in this industry, I've been mostly an actor, but I have learned my due diligence when it comes to script writing, casting, and all that stuff. I'm going to put on my Ryan Coogler hat for a second, right? Black Panther 2, Wakanda Forever, wasn't the biggest draw that they thought it was going to be. And most of it was because of the rush job, unfortunately, that they had when Chadwick unfortunately passed away during filming. And so they had a timetable and they had to get this movie out. So they made Sherry, his sister, Letitia Wright, wonderful actress, take the mantle for that movie. But a lot of people weren't biting at the apple for that. They weren't really clamoring for that. And part of it was Chadwick just passed. Nobody can top his performance. It's like Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man. It's like Chris Evans as Captain America. When you leave such a big mark and such a big impact, it's hard to oversee that. It's hard to overcome that. So Wakanda Forever didn't do the numbers that they anticipated, but I'm sure they were fine with it, knowing the unfortunate circumstances behind making the movie. So going to Black Panther 3, which was just announced for 2028, their idea is okay, nobody is going to go into these movies giving whoever we cast as the new Black Panther a fair shake if we compare them to Chadwick. So how do you do it? And Wakanda Forever, if you remember, they had his son at the end of the movie. And it was just a small, brief introduction. But I called this. I said they're going to age his son to the point where he's old enough to fight for the mantle of the Black Panther. His father, unfortunately, just passed away. How do you deal with that? So David Jonsson, if you ever watched any of his films, he's a very dramatic actor, meaning he knows how to carry emotions. He knows how to, bring that emotional element to a role. So if I'm Ryan Coogler, I'm looking at Damson Idris, who is more of a leading man s type, tall, dark, good looking, no Diddy, uh, good looking, and brings a certain suave to the role, right? David Jonsson brings a more, you know, I care about him. He looks sympathetic type of role, and if you look at them side to side, you'll see that. If you watch their acting, you'll see that. So David Jonsson is the perfect casting because he brings a different energy. I feel like with a Damson, and this is no play on him as an actor, but if I'm Ryan Coogler in Marvel, I'm thinking, okay, how do I make Black Panther 3 a bigger success than Wakanda Forever? Let's not replace Chadwick. We're not going to replace Chadwick. We're going to keep him as the OG, the GOAT. But we need to move this story forward. Let's make his son the new Black Panther, but let's make it so where he doesn't want to be king. He has to fight himself to accept that role, and he has a lot of roadblocks and challenges to get there. David Jonsson has that factor to him. And as an actor, I can tell you, I don't know if I would be right for that specific role because I know what type of actor I am. And if they're looking for an actor who screams innocence and screams vulnerability, well, just look at me. You know what I'm saying? I steal the room. So I think that David Jonsson was the perfect casting for that specific reason. You raise you age his son. He comes into Black Panther 3, and it's been confirmed actually he's going to be in Secret Wars coming out next year. So this sets the timetable perfectly. You introduce him as a non-Wakandian. He finds out the news of his father's passing, like they did with Black Panther in Captain America: Civil War. But in this version, his son now has to acknowledge that his father has passed away, and now they want to anoint him as the new King T'Challa. But he doesn't know how to take that mantle. So if you break down the story right, it's a perfect casting. And I think that's exactly what they're going to do. Because, like I said, it's hard to replace someone with such great impact. So why even go against the grain with that? Why even fight the audience? No, just keep it where it is, and just come around it. Keep Chadwick's place cemented while also allowing somebody else to come over and take their spot without overseeding or allowing Chadwick's unfortunate passing, allowing his cloud that he's formed in Marvel overshadow the new actor. So it's a perfect blend of paying homage to Chadwick, but also allowing somebody else to come up and take the mantle. So I have no problem with David Jonsson being cast. People are allowing their bias and stuff to take over, but give him a chance. Give him a chance. I think Ryan Coogler is one of the best young directors we have, and so far he's knocked it out the park. Sinners, Black Panther, Fruitville Station. The list goes on and on. So just give them a chance. Let them cook. Let them cook. Let them do their thing, and let's see what the final product is. But I get the vision. I get the idea, and I'm looking forward to um, that movie coming out in 2028. Speaking of Marvel, we got more news because while everybody's singing Marvel's praise with Spider-Man's new release and all the money that Marvel has made, well, not everybody is happy with Marvel. Case in point, Mahershala Ali. He's came out in an interview recently and he basically called out Marvel. Um, Blade has been permanently shelved. It didn't survive the chopping block. Blade is no longer he's finito, finished. Um, and he's came out and kind of criticized Marvel for stringing him along and doing this to him. And a lot of people actually sided with him. Some people, of course, are going to push back and say he should be grateful for the opportunity. But as an actor, as a businessman, as someone who may not be able to understand that position he was in, but to understand how this business is, I can't blame him. And so he basically said, Marvel, you have the money, you have the budget, you have everything in place. I don't understand why this movie haven't been made in the last 5, 6 years that it's been, pretty much confirmed that I was casted as Blade. What is taking so long? Yeah, doing all these other movies. And I'm not putting words in his mouth. I'm kind of just, add a little flavor, if you will. But basically, he was just upset that Marvel strung him along and Blade never got pushed. And so, um, I don't disagree with him. Blade. Wesley Snipes is the greatest Blade as we know, but I was looking forward to Mahershala's take on Blade, and the movie unfortunately got shelved, and part of that is, and it's not no fault of his own. I think Marvel realized the the grave mistake they made after Endgame, which was they stopped putting so much effort into the movies. Now, cinematically, they didn't, but the storylines, the promotion, the way how they staggered films, that went out the window because for a period of almost 10 years, they was just knocking it out the park. $1 billion, almost $2 billion for one movie. They was just knocking it out the park. And this goes back to something I said earlier about myself. Sometimes when you gain a little bit of success, you get a little bit of acknowledgement, and especially for Marvel, they just top competition entirely. When you get to a certain point, sometimes you forget what it was like to be the little guy in the room. You forget what it's like to be the one who's trying to fight and claw their way to the top. Marvel's already at the top. They're the cream. They're the top of the top. So I think they lost the plot. No pun intended. They lost the vision. They started rushing movies. Can I bring up Thor: Love and Thunder, please? I mean, enough said. Um, and that's not even the only one. The Marvels, the Eternals, Doctor Strange. Um, I like the second one, but a lot of people wasn't a fan of it. Marvel lost the idea of they lost what got them to the dance, and so they was just throwing out movies, because they was making so much money and that they wanted to keep that reputation and that ball rolling, and so they knew when Endgame ended, all the OGs was basically gonna be sidelined, if not done, and so they wanted to keep that momentum, but they rushed it. They didn't take their time like they used to. They didn't build that anticipation that audiences, came to enjoy when it came to a Marvel movie. And we've seen it this year with Spider-Man, A Brand New Day, and now with Doomsday. People are biting at the bit to get to these movie theaters to see these movies now. And it's because they took that approach of let's slow things down. Let's not be too greedy. We already had our plate. We don't need to rush and skip everybody else and get a second. No, we let's take our time here. So Mahershala Ali is not wrong. I understand how he feels. And I think that unfortunately a lot of these big budget movie studios, um, it's not personal, it's just business. They got to look at what's good for their bottom line. They got to look at what's good for making money. And not to say Blade wasn't good for money. It was. I think a lot of people was excited to see Blade. But I just think that they had so many missteps along the way that unfortunately some people have to suffer the consequences for those actions. And Mahershala Ali, I really hope that you get a second chance, not even just with Marvel, but with DC or somebody, because it people don't realize for someone like him, there's contracts involved, there's other things involved. So legally binding contracts, if he's contractually obligated to play Blade, and if in a contract that says, hey, you're gonna have to wait until we shoot this movie to do other projects. He lost a lot of income, a lot of money, a lot of opportunities. So I'm not saying that's what happened in this case, but it seemed to me that based off what I'm seeing and hearing from him, that he feels slighted because he lost a lot of opportunities, and he waited out all this time for no results, no results. So, I feel bad for him, but like I said, I think Marvel's going to get their groove back, and I hope they do him right. I hope Ryan Coogler, somebody could give him a spot somewhere, make him happy, at least somewhat happy, and make the situation right. Because this is a blow not only to Mahershala, but it's a blow to us as fans. Speaking of blows, speaking of superhero stuff, let's blow stuff up right now. I've talked about this ad nauseum, but I got to bring this up because it pains me to have to do this. DC Universe, James Gunn. What are we doing here? I'm just, and this is not a slight on James Gunn because his hands in the pot can only go so far. So Supergirl was a box office bomb. It was supposed to the budget for it, if I'm not mistaken, was close to $170 million, right? This is just the standard now for big blockbuster movies. So a production budget of $170 million. Now, for a movie to make profit, they have their own internal gauge, but generally you probably want to make more than 200 million just to break even with marketing costs and stuff like that. Well, Supergirl, which I just found out while I was on set this past week from another actor, came out a month ago. I didn't even know about it. I didn't see a peep about it. And I know people are going to say, well, you're an actor. You should know this stuff. Well, that's not necessarily true. Have you met me? I'm the most charismatic man. I'm all over the place. But, even when I browse Twitter, yes, I get my news from Twitter. Sorry. Um, I didn't see much about it. And so Supergirl only made $110 million against $170 million budget. Box office bomb. And I feel bad for Milaka. I don't know how to say her name, but um, Supergirl herself. I feel bad for James Gunn, but I feel bad as a fan because I've always felt like DC has the potential to do what Marvel is doing in terms of budgets, in terms of profit, in terms of just the overall, domination, and they just keep they get to the championship rounds and they keep bombing. They keep making mistakes. I'm just I'm just frustrated with this whole thing. I think DC brought James Gunn to help boost their product. James Gunn, obviously, for people who don't know, he is the director for a lot of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, which a lot of people love and made a lot of money. James Gunn goes over to DC, reorganizes everything. Superman, which came out last year, with David Corns, who I almost got to work with. That'll be a story time for another day. Um, did phenomenal. Now this movie, I didn't see any promotion for it. I didn't see not one trailer. I didn't see not one just one cover. You walk in Times Square, you see billboards for all the Marvel movies, every movie that comes out. I didn't see one for Supergirl. So I just DC. I would love to work with DC. I love DC, but they got to get their act together. This is not good. Um, this is unfortunate because now DC is going to be known as a laughing stock. And a lot of actors aren't going to want to take a chance working with DC because clearly they can't get it right. And this is not a disrespect. This is not me calling them out, but this is just as a person, as an actor who has always been biased towards DC in the terms of I feel that they have Superman, Aquaman, The Flash, Batman, so many characters. They could be making they should be where Marvel is, and yet they just seems like AEW to WWE. And honestly, I would even put them even lower than AEW at this point. I just think that they need to prioritize marketing. They need to prioritize, you know, strategy. It can't just be, oh, Marvel got a movie coming out. Let's do a movie too. It has to be substance. It has to be quality. And most importantly, you have to market it. And I think they just forget that one piece entirely, the marketing. Marvel does such a great job with marketing. Every movie, whether it's Avengers, whether it's Captain Marvel, whether it's their side characters, they do a good job with marketing. DC, I'm begging you, please help me out here. I'm trying to be a fan. I'm trying to support. I want other people to see the vision. I want them to be eye and eye with me with this. But it just seems I'm the only one screaming at the hilltop for DC, and I just think that they have hurt the fans so much that I don't know if they want to give them another chance. And part of it is their fault. Just you don't have to copy and paste what Marvel's doing, but see what they do. Just look at Doomsday. I mean, the amount of marketing and publicity this movie's got, even a year and a half out. Well, now we're closer to the movie being released, but last year they started marketing this, and even till this day, everybody still rewatches the first trailer that they dropped last year. It's they mastered the art of grabbing people's attention. DC is just kind of like, hey, we have Superman, come over here. That's not enough. That's not enough. DC, yeah, yeah, gotta do better. Yeah, yeah, really gotta do better. Um, talking about doing better. Let's talk about this. So I, I'm not a Harry Potter snuff, buff, whatever you call it. I'm not a fan Harry Potter fan club member. Um, but this was breaking, and this goes to another conversation that I don't know if I'm gonna have this full breakdown on the podcast. I'll probably save it for when I interview a director or somebody of that caliber. But Jessica Cave, known as playing Lavender Brown in Harry Potter, broke the news cycle. Broke the news from England. 20 plus year successful career in Hollywood. She came out and said, "Look, I know y'all love me as this role in Harry Potter. Harry Potter's beloved. Daniel Radcliffe, all of them. Very talented actors. But I've made a lot more money doing OnlyFans than my entire 20 plus year career in entertainment. Now, this has caused a lot of uproar, a lot of headlines. Some people supporting it, some people don't like it. Some people feel like it's pushing women back. Some people think it's setting the industry back. So I did my due diligence. I went on Twitter where I get my news. That's right. Now I can. I actually did a little more research than that. So basically, if I'm not mistaken, she doesn't do rated R content. It's more actor friendly, but she does a lot of behind the scenes stuff. So it's not, it's for families and children. Not that children is going to OnlyFans, but it's not that type of work that we often think of when it comes to OnlyFans. So basically, I believe she charges about $6 a month. I'm sure she has other tiers. But basically, she said, "Look, I make so much money on OnlyFans. It's made my acting career look a shame." And this is not the first time in this industry we've heard about actors' pay. And I was actually, when I was on set, I was talking to the production coordinator about this. This guy, very, very nice guy, has worked on a lot of major movies, TV shows, commercials, whatever you name it, he's been there. Um, the pay has been a big problem, and this is not even just including stars. This is for everybody, and if you're an actor right now like myself, it's it's hard. It's hard to make a true sustainable living like it was 20 plus years ago. You know, before my time, when you had the Daniel Day Lewis's, the Samuel Jacksons, the Denzel Washingtons, the Will Smiths, the Al Pacinos, the Robert De Niro's. These guys will make so much money for one movie that realistically they could just do that movie and call it a day for the rest of the year. But they got used to being at the top echelon of this industry. That's not the case in Big 2026. A lot of stars, unfortunately, even Hollywood names, unless you have a contract, let's say, Chris Hemsworth for Marvel, or, somebody of that caliber, work is starting to dry up for a lot of people. And it's rough unless you have a contract binding you to a long-standing TV show like Olivia Benson, Mariska Hargitay to Law and Order SVU, or like I said, Chris Evans, Chris Hemsworth to Marvel. Work is hard to get, and part of the reason is a lot of production companies are leaving the United States or moving away from LA. Los Angeles used to be the cream of the crop, and I lived there. But lately, over the last few years, we've seen a mass exodus of production companies. They're going to the southeast. Some of them are coming to New York, but a lot of them are shooting overseas now, and part of it is budgets, money, and people don't want to shell out the big bucks anymore. And so now we're seeing a shift in the industry where certain roles that actors would get, and I'm not talking about the A-listers, I'm just talking about working professional actors like myself. Certain roles require certain pay. And like I said, I'm not going to make this a whole diatribe, but, when you're a guest star on a TV show, a co star on a TV show, those get a certain amount of money. And a lot of people want those opportunities, not because just the money, but because of what it can do for your career. We're seeing celebrity actors taking these roles. We're seeing them taking commercial spots that they wouldn't have sniffed 20 years ago. We're seeing them taking roles that was once considered below celebrity status. But because a lot of these companies are, they don't want to shell out the cash anymore, a lot of them are going to have to do stuff like that. Because the days of the $30 million paydays, like I said, this, occasional, people like Robert Downey Jr. who could command that from Marvel, you don't see those type of paydays anymore. It's just not happening. And part of the reason is AI, cheaper shooting production costs outside the United States. And long story short, I think for someone like her, It just sheds another light on the industry that the pay is just not where it is anymore. And this is for men and women. This is not even just a woman thing. This is for both genders. Now, I think, unfortunately, knowing some of the industry, yeah, I think for a lot of women, especially when you get to a certain age, it just seems like Hollywood don't want to pay you because you're not. In simpler terms, you watch a lot of Netflix. You see a lot of young, vibrant women, a lot of younger women, right? So they look at the sex appeal factor. You know, look at Scarlett Johansson, for instance, as an example. Scarlett Johansson, you know, yeah, she's a little older than she used to be, but to the average fan, she is attractive. Not to say Jessica isn't, but she's also tied to Marvel. So her stock has just continually gone up. She found that recipe of still having that attractiveness, but also staying at the top. Some people, unfortunately, and it's not like I said, just women, but it happens to a lot of women, unfortunately. They get to a certain age and Hollywood starts treating them different because now you can't command the same audience that you used to. You know, Sylvester Stallone, even in the '60s, could still do an action movie. Yeah, it might look a little, look a little hazy at times, but it's Sylvester Stallone. It's an action movie. You want to see the big blockbuster moves and the CGI and the fight scenes and the sequences. It's easy to pull that off when you have a lot of camera tricks and stuff to help. You can't fake attractiveness, unfortunately. And as both men and women age in this industry, if you aren't able to command your worth, then a lot of these studios decide not to pay you what you feel you're worth. And so this is nothing new. This is not shocking. And for Jessica, I commend her for being honest about it. A lot of people can shy and say, I'm working an honest living, and truth be told, we're seeing that. We're seeing people you see on your TV screen weekly or on Netflix, on streaming services. You're seeing them at your local grocery store. You're seeing them at local places, and you're like, wait, I just saw you on TV. How are you? Why are you working here? That's just the way the industry is now. A lot of people, unless you have the right representation and the right momentum, and everything is aligning for you, got to have a day job, and it sucks. It sucks because, like I said, 20 years ago, uh, actors could do 1 or 2 films a year and be chilling. They can pay their bills and live. Not anymore. But I will say, in contrast to that, I would say there's more opportunities. So yes, the money has dried up just a tad, just a skosh, just a little bit, but there's more opportunities now. You're not pigeonholed to, oh, Paramount don't want to hire you. Okay, well now you got HBO, now you got Apple TV, now you got Tubi, which is a whole nother thing. Speaking of which, leads me to an announcement I have to make. I should have made this earlier, but I've talked about the movie I did third week. Um, Feature film that we shot in New York City, Staten Island, Manhattan. Um, I announced that it was on Amazon Prime. Now, that's wonderful. But now, I can officially announce that third week is on Tubi. I actually got to watch it last week for the first time, the full movie, hour and a half. Go check it out. Third week is officially on Tubi now as well. So if you want a free option, go to Tubi. If you feel a little generous to your boy and you want to spread the good wealth, you could go on Amazon Prime. But I would highly suggest you check out the movie. I got to work with a lot of brilliant people in the movie. Ron Barber, Aaron Poon, Alicia Taylor. The list goes on and on. I met a lot of great people. Shout out to the director Jordy Torrent, Randy Simon, the head of RS Wolf Productions. So many people to thank for that movie, and I'm just glad that we can actually share this with everybody finally. So, like I said, if you want to go check it out on Amazon Prime. Spread the wealth a little bit. You know what I'm saying? But you could go my route, watch it on Tubi for free, or you just need. I think you might have to sign up with a quick account, no credit card required. So, please go check it out. Let me know what you think. DM me, leave comments. Let me know what you think of the movie. Like I said, I'm the show stealer. I'm the show stopper. I keep this train rolling. But anyway, let's wrap this up, shall we? Um, so yeah, a lot of people. Monique has spoken out about this. A lot of people in this industry has spoken out about the pay, fairness, and wages. Taraji P Henson. Um, yeah, even the stars are going through it. And I've mentioned this I think a couple times, but it's funny. A lot of commercials and stuff that I audition for, roles in major movies I audition for, I've lost them to celebrities. And like I said, sometimes it's not always just celebrities, but I have lost them to a lot of celebrities. I can't name them all, but it's two in particular, and they don't look like me, that always end up taking the roles. So, John Cena, you're one of them. Comfy, man. You won't see me when I comfy. Just telling you, just letting you know right now. Party time is over. Um, but all seriousness though, that's just the name of the game. That's just the industry, and we just got to be able to adapt or perish. And I'm adapting. AI is here to stay. And that's making production companies ease out their wallets a little bit less, because now they don't have to shell out the big bucks anymore. And it's unfortunate the way how the industry is going. The lot of changes that aren't favorable to actors but production companies. I get it. It's a business like everything else, but people just want to be able to live and support themselves. And for an actor to be on a long-standing show, with multiple seasons and still have the wait tables, that's just not the life. That's just not the life. And now we're seeing more actors, more creatives, more people in the industry find other ways to make money, whether it's doing podcasts, whether it's starting their own business or production companies, or partnering with brands and stuff like that. They're outsourcing and out seeking. Um, and like I said, Will Smith. If Will Smith can have trouble finding work, so can I. So, with that being said, shout out to her. Shout out to everybody in the industry, even with their name recognition, being honest about and being transparent, because it not only helps them, but it helps the new stars, the new faces that's going to be coming up. Um, I think we need transparency in this industry, and we need people to be honest about what's going on, because if we don't keep people informed, people stay in the dark. And then now, when it's my turn to get up to the top, the ladder is being pulled from under me. And it's just, it's unfortunate. But I will say, on a positive note, Avengers Doomsday is coming up soon, coming up shortly, December. We are cooking, baby. This podcast will be shut down. I ain't doing nothing. I will be watching that movie all December of 2026. I'm just kidding. I might do an episode, but don't be calling me. Don't be leaving me messages, all right? Because we finally have arrived to Avengers Doomsday. They just dropped another official trailer featuring the X-Men, the Wakandians, the X-Men, the Aqualanians. Oh no, that's DC. I'm stupid. Sorry, I'm losing my marbles. Um, I think Namor threw me off. I was thinking about Aquaman. That's why I mentioned that. But anyway, back to the story. Um, DC Marvel, you got me. You got me sold. I'm back. I'm ready. Um, I can't wait for that movie. And I want to stress this part too, because a lot of people are asking why Robert Downey Jr. had to be Doctor Doom. Why is Chris Evans coming back? Why is some of these stars coming back? Why is Marvel bringing them? We don't need them. Well, I'll say this, and I said this earlier, so I'm gonna keep this short-winded. Marvel saw the error in their ways after Endgame. Anthony Mackie, yes, he got the rub from Captain America. Um, Chris Evans passed him the torch, But unfortunately, the torch wasn't passed correctly. And when Captain America Brave New World came out, it showed. A lot of people wasn't willing to accept, you know, Sam Wilson as Captain America. And part of that was the love for Chris Evans as Captain America was just too strong. And so now they have a way to reverse that. You know, reverse. Jay Uso, yeet, get it? Reverse. Anyway, um, so now they're bringing back Chris Evans, Chris Hemsworth, Robert Downey Jr. as the titular character, Doctor Doom. Um, they're bringing back some of their A-listers, the OGs, and part of that is to give the rub to the next generation. Because in order to pass the torch, you have to pass the torch correctly. You can't throw it and hope for Hail Mary. You can't let it slip and fall. You have to pass it off correctly. And in order to do that, you got to get the OGs back. Get people excited again. Like I said, a lot of people, Marvel will be breaking records in the first like week. So get people invested again. Get the OGs come back and let them correctly pass off the torch. After Doomsday, I could see maybe some of them coming back for Secret Invasion or Secret Wars. But I think Doomsday is the official passing of the torch. Let the new generation, let the new stars take over. Let the OGs fade off and go live and find other opportunities, and build it that way. You can't rush this type of stuff. So I'm looking forward to it. X-Men, Cyclops. Ooh, it's going. Nightcrawler, who they used to call me in high school. I ain't forget y'all. Thank you for bullying me. Calling me Nightcrawler. Anyway, enough of that. I'm excited for it. I can't wait for it. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be exciting. I'm getting my ticket as early as possible. If I can find it on Reddit, anybody know some deals, hook me up. If I can save just a couple dollars, I'll take it. But I am looking forward to it. Spider-Man Brand New Day, another home run. Um, it's exciting to be a superhero fan. It's exciting to be a Marvel fan. DC, please make it exciting to be a DC fan. Not for me, but for other people. Because I'm always going to support, but y'all got to do better. But anyway, that's my rant. That's my deep dive. I hope you liked it. I hope you enjoyed it. The most charismatic man has multiple layers to him. I know I'm a little more animated today. Like I said, I'm just grateful. I'm at peace. I'm getting my groove back. I lost that flame for a while, but I'm back, baby. I'm back on set. I'm back to being in front of the camera more often. I'm doing what I love. I'm doing what I started when I was 13 years old, and being able to go back to what got me to the dance, kind of reignited that passion and that fire that I needed. So, with that being said, the most charismatic man might not be signing out, but he's getting out of here. But thank you guys. Always. Like I always say, a helping hand is a better hand. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for supporting this journey. Thank you for always sticking around, even when I have to take a little small break. But we're back, baby. We are back. I got some episodes cooking for y'all, and I ain't talking about The Rock. Screw him. No, I'm kidding. We got a lot of stuff coming. So until the next episode, stay safe, stay strong, keep motivated, keep positive, and remember, there's only one tribal chief, and it's not Roman Reigns. The most charismatic man is out.